ครับ
สวัสดีครับ
Thank you for being here. It's great to have you back again on this program.
It's always a pleasure.
As you know that Thai politics produce a lot of head scratchers.
Indeed.
This program is designed to help our audience. But before we move on to the serious topics, let's talk about your recent visit to a movie theater to watch this movie which has been trending for weeks now. And for those of you who have not watched this movie, in Thai it's called Lan
Ma,
right?
which is like the grandson
and grandma, right? But
yes.
its English title is How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies.
Yes.
It's quite dramatic. And for those of you who have not watched it yet, I'm telling you, you're missing something. And I was told that you were so touched by the movie.
I was very
Not
touched.
only because of the dramatic acting and the plot of the film, but because you believe that it reflects the challenges that Thailand is facing.
Indeed.
As an aging society or
Yes.
on the way to becoming super age society.
Yes.
Which I believe is an issue very close to your heart as Minister of Human Security and Social Development, right?
Yes.
So can you say something about this movie that really touches you?
Well, first of all, I think this movie touches everyone. I think everyone has a grandma, everyone has a grandpa, or everyone has someone of this age at home who sometimes being left unattended, and you would only realize that you miss them until they're not here, then they're gone. And in the movie, it goes on saying that how to make millions,
That's right,
before
that's right.
grandma dies. But I think at the end, what you get, I mean, the millions is just, some tangible stuff. But what you actually get out of it is the intangible, is the feeling, is the bond that money cannot buy. The bond between Gen Baby Boomer and Gen Z or even Gen Alpha. The link that cannot be bought, it can only be built, and it can only be experienced. So I think by the end of that movie, I hope people would realize that the most valuable inheritance that the grandson received from his grandma is not the money. It's the warmth. It's the bond. It's the relationship between two generations, and I think it's a fundamental bond, fundamental threat of our society, especially in today's world.
That's right.
Thai society is built upon these bonds in a intergenerational house where we have the grannies, the mother and father, the sons and the grandsons. Some households even has 4 generations, in one house. And it's the fundamental of our society. We have the patronage society where the elders will look after the younger ones. It doesn't matter if you're the son or the grandson. I mean, like my dad, look after my children as well. So it's only common in our society.
A tradition.
Tradition. And I think there are the pros and the cons about it. But I think it's the basic fundamental building blocks of Thai society. It's our strength. And as time goes by, Thai society, the newer generation, absorbed the traditions of the Western cultures and so many items. And I think we are neglecting the really important, the basic necessities of a family. And I think this movie reminds every single one of us that what our fundamentals are made of.
That's right. I know you can talk for hours on this topic because it's one of your major concerns
It is.
as someone who looks after this important ministry. Right?
Indeed.
Okay, we leave it to some other time in the future. We talk about this particular issue. So let's come back to the issue of the day. That's
course.
politics, right? As we are talking, you know that there is widespread speculation about an impending cabinet reshuffle.
Yes.
And we have learned from the media that the heads will roll. We don't know whose heads will roll.
Fingers crossed.
But as far as you're concerned, do you feel secure with your job?
Well, despite the fact that the name of the ministry is Social Development and Human Security.
You feel secure?
Since I took up this position, or even my previous portfolio, one thing I always say to myself, it's not how much time you have left, it's how much work you can do during the time that you serve with the hat still on. I do work like there's no tomorrow. I always work as if I shall be removed from my portfolio at any time. So make every single minute count.
Okay.
And if everyone only worries about, oh, where I'm going to be, will I get kicked out or something like that, you will neglect the most important part about your job is to serve the country and to serve the people. So I think I do spend my time and energy in the work that I've been assigned to. If there are going to be some reshufflings, or if the main coalition party, which is Chartthai Party, invited me to talk, of course there will be negotiations.
Okay.
But once the negotiation is done, forget it. You know, until you are being requested for a meeting, then you start thinking about the reshuffling. But until then, I'm still the minister. I've got a lot of work to do, and let's concentrate on that.
And you're happy with your current job?
Oh yes, any job is better than no job.
No, but it seems to me that you enjoy your previous portfolio than the current one. I am a follower of your Facebook.
Yes.
And I noticed that when you were still the minister in charge of the environment, you always post pictures of yourself and your colleagues walking along beautiful beaches, visiting national wildlife parks, and doing scuba diving. And I was telling myself, this guy is not working. He seems to be on holiday all the time. How did you manage to work your workman fun
Yes.
that way?
Well, I think when it comes to work, enjoyable or not, is one thing. But I do put in 120% of my effort. Unfortunately, with the current scope of work, I deal with vulnerable groups of people, the elders, the people with disabilities, or youth and children. I can't really post too much of those pictures online because there are the personal data protection.
I noticed a difference.
Yeah.
The mood of the picture and what you say on your Facebook post.
One needs to tread very carefully when posting something, because I don't want to offend anyone, and there's always two sides to a coin. If I try to convey a certain message, but the photographs or the post, being misinterpreted, that can be quite damaging. But make no mistakes, I still work very hard with the issues: children, family institutions, women, gender equality, poverty eradication, people with disabilities, even LGBTQ, and the older people. And there are a lot of work. But it's a totally different scope of work from my previous portfolio.
Now, if the Prime Minister, Kun Setha, asks you, Kun Varawut, do you want to change jobs? Would you give it a consideration?
Well, I think...
Because in the last interview we had last year,
yes,
you said you wanted to change Thailand.
Yes.
And education was the key to it.
Yes.
And meaning that if you have a choice, you would rather want to be Minister of Education. Is that still your idea?
Well, a new issue came up along the way since then. I've been working at the MSDHS for the past 7 to 8 months. The really immediate concern now is the population crisis. Okay. The age society, such a small amount of newborn babies is happening in Thailand, less than 500,000. So much that during the past 4 years, our population has shrunk by 500,000 people. And if this trend continues without any corrections or measures, in about 40 or 50 years, our 66 million population will drop down to about 32 million. So it'll be half. Wow. So as a result, one really needs to shift into gears, not just in our ministry, but in all ministries. Some people said, okay, we want to have more babies. It's not just as simple as having a man and a woman stay together and produce babies. We do not have problems about fertility. However, we do have problems with the newer generations. They don't want to have babies.
It's a common problem in many, many countries. Right?
Exactly. And in order to solve that problem, the urge to have a family and babies, it's not just the Ministry of Social Development and Human Security.
You're right.
It comes from Ministry of Tourism and Sports, Education, of course, even Ministry of Interior, Transportation, Public Health. So really, at this point in time, every single ministry can change Thailand.
You think we still can reverse the trend?
Nothing is never too late. Never say never. And also, it's better late than never. So there is always a possibility to turn things around before it's too late.
Oh, there are fears of shortage of the workforce as well, right?
There will be.
And there have been talks about easing the rules and regulations on migrant workers. Is it something that you want to push for? Because it's quite challenging because there would be opposition to this kind of
Of course,
idea.
there will be opposition to this proposal, but the fact of life is that now, each year, we have less than 500,000 people, well, babies born, and we have more and more older people. I mean, I myself, for instance, I'm 51 this year. In 9 years, I'm going to join the Age Society.
You'll be part of the problem.
I'll be part of the problem. And I was born in 1973. Now, during the year I was born, I've got about over 1 million friends born with me. If you go later to 1974, 1975, or go back to 1972 or 1971, during these 5 years, the birth rate was about 1 million each year. So that means 5 years from, well, about 8 years from now, we're going to have 1 million older people entering into the system every single year for 5 consecutive years. So we're going to have 5 million more older people. While at the same time, we have less and less people joining the workforce age group. So that means the working group, the working age, has much more burden to carry the older people. And if we do not have more people coming in, do not have more workforces coming in by means of utilizing people with disabilities or utilizing the older people, then we have to rely on the migrant workers. And we do have a lot of that in Thailand. And in about a decade, we cannot escape the fact that we cannot rely solely on Thai workforce.
Okay, all right. Let's move on to the issue dealing with politics, which is getting more and more complicated and interesting these
Yes,
days.
indeed.
No, I remember that when you were here the last time, it was shortly before the general elections in May last year, right?
Yes.
And I remember you were brimming with confidence that your party would do much better than the previous elections.
No, yes.
And you even predicted that your party would win at least 25 seats.
That's
Enough to have you nominated as Prime Minister.
yes.
But we all know what the result of the election was like, right?
Well, the election's always, it's always a 180 degrees turn.
But this time it was a much bigger surprise than people expected, right?
I think some other parties got even more surprised.
Even though your party, Chartthai Pattana, managed to retain all the House seats in Suphanburi, the stronghold, but somehow you lost the popular vote, the votes for the
Significantly.
the party list MP candidates, right? Did you see it coming?
I did, but not to this magnitude. Like I mentioned just now, that some other parties had even bigger surprise than Chartthai Pattana. But I think the Thai public as a whole, during the previous election, there are so many factors why certain party has such an increase in the number of MP seats, why some parties significantly underperformed. There are many factors which, well, I'm not going to go into it, but now that some of the factors have changed, I think as time goes by, the Thai people, the voters, would realize that it's easier said than done. To get things done, to execute certain things, it's much more, there are so many restrictions in terms of rules and regulation, law, people management, and to come up with a policy so daring. We need money. Sometimes people said, okay, you want 3,000 baht subsidies for the older people. That I don't have any problem with that if we have enough money. If you want to have across the board 3,000 baht for older people, in 5 years' time we're going to be spending about 570 billion baht. That's about a third. No, I'm sorry. That's about 20% of our country's budget. Where are we going to get the money from? We need to look at the reality, and people would. I hope people realize by now that we do need income for the country to get the expenditure.
Okay, let's go back to the election last year. I mean, many people believe that the way that the Move Forward Party, Khao Klai, won the election should come as a wake-up call for the more established parties like Chartthai Pattana. And I'm sure you must have done some soul searching within the party itself, right? So have you come up with any answer as to why things happen the way
there's quite a few elements that sometimes the voters really need to realize. For example, the policies that Chartthai Pattana Party introduced as the main campaign last time, we reiterate on the fact that it's doable, it's sustainable, and it allows people to stand on their own strength, stand on their own ground, maximize their capability. And the thing in life is that there is no such thing as free lunch. If you want to get something, you have to work for it. And that is the policy, and that is the way of thinking that I believe Thai people in Thailand really should think about. However, some other parties would come up with a more radical policies.
More populist policies.
More populist policy. I'm not talking about whether it's implementable.
Okay.
For example, when we talk about conscription, for example, with the military, what happens if we do not have enough military? Look at the situation at our western neighbor at the moment with Myanmar. We do need military power to look after our border. And what happens when we don't have enough? I think that is still the questions that no one can answer. Of course, they can say that, okay, you need to buy more technologies or something, but then again, every time when the military tries to buy something, they get attacked.
Easier said than done.
Much easier said than done. And we, well, our party are not a big fan of a populist party, unfortunately. I mean, populist policy.
Okay. But you can't escape to have some elements of the populist policy in the platform.
A little bit, but we try not to spoil too much.
But how would you describe Chartthai Pattana as a party? In Western democracy, you may have conservative, liberal, neo-conservative, but what does the party stand for?
I think our party is a pragmatist. During the past administration and up until today, I think I've proven that our party get things done. Okay, by watching this program, I'm sure there'll be a few people asking, what have you done, blah, 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 but please, so-called,
definitely,
nonetheless, go and look at my Facebook profiles and you'll see what our party have done during the past administration and what we are doing right now.
Okay.
And it's something that is doable, something that is actually changing the way of life of people. We are not a dreamy party. We don't come up with some far-fetched idea, and we also think about the repercussion effect of our policy. And unfortunately, sometimes people don't respond well with the reality that we are trying to propose.
I see. You use the word pragmatism, but your critics said, no, it's not pragmatism. It's political expediency that your party has always been associated with. Expediency in the sense that even going back to the times when your party was still known as Chartthai Party, right? It was nicknamed the political eel, right? That can always change colors. And the goal was not to go after any particular political ideologies, but to make sure that you always be part of the bandwagon. Right? That's still the image that you think it still sticks with the party.
I think I will refrain from explaining that concept because I feel that it's outdated. But Chartthai Party, I think straight after the 14th of May election last year, I was the first party to come and stand and gave an interview in front of the cabinet meeting, before the cabinet meeting, that if Move Forward Party, insist on having the coalitions from the previous administration's opposition, then Chartthai Pattana stands ready to become the opposition. I think I was the first one to come out and say that because Move Forward Party has a very strong beliefs in certain issues that I totally disbelieve in. I have my own beliefs. I work for the king and the country. I hold the royal family and the royal institutions very dearly, and no one, and I mean no one, will will paint a totally different pictures from us. And because of that, I came out and I was the first one to say, I'm not going to join because this is where I stand. And if that is still classified as willing to change the color, then I'm sorry. I have my color. And I've got 3 colors actually, is red, blue, and white.
Okay. But you are confident that the party has discarded that image of being always ready to jump on the bandwagon whenever it suits the party's
Well, I am
interest, right?
willing to work with certain parties, and I am willing to stand on the other side if some other beliefs gets into power. And I think I've made that very clear during the formation of this government.
Okay. Now, in our last interview last year, you described yourself as a link between the older generation of politicians and the younger ones, because you were much younger than today, right? You were,
Yes.
Yeah, at least 4 years younger. And you said similar thing 8 years ago too, when
Yes.
you were much younger than this. And so, who are you today as a politician?
Well, and unfortunately, I cannot escape the fact that this link is getting older and older as time goes by.
You're leaning toward the older generation now, right?
But there are excellent examples in our society. Kun Suthishayun, for example, despite his age, he has a very forward thinking. He is very up to date, technology-wise, knowledge-wise. So I think when we talk about bridging, I don't think it's bridging the generations anymore. I think it's more of a bridging the ideas and the conceptual thinking and the attitude of different generations. I'm trying to understand Gen Y. Gen Z will be more difficult for me because I'm Gen X. As well as when Gen Y is a wonderful link between Gen X and Gen Z. Because Gen Y to Gen Alpha, that's going to be a big jump, just like between Gen Baby Boomer and Gen Y. So each generation will be a link, one up and one down. And I think at the moment, I'm still the link between generation Baby Boomer and the Gen Y. But when we talk about Gen Z, I think I need to use the service of the Gen Y in order to keep on the link moving forward.
Am I right to say that your party is still very much dominated by the old guards? Many of them are still people from your father's generation, right?
True.
But as a representative of the new generation of politicians, do you think you have problem working with them? Do you feel intimidated by these old school politicians?
Not intimidated, but more of pay more respect to the older generations. And well, I have to give them credits because they built the party up with my father. And, who am I to throw them out and, get rid of them or ignore them? So I think it's only fair that, I don't want to get kicked out 20 years from now or 10 years from now when the newer generations of politicians comes in. I mean, I believe in do upon others as you want to be done to yourselves. So I do give them a lot of respect. I listen to their ideas because some of their ideas are still very implementable in the rural areas of Thailand. Some of the ideas doesn't work within the urban areas. So we need to mix and match and balance between the previous school of thought and the future and the current school of thoughts.
I know that you have a very strong intention to make changes in the party in order to move it forward. But I'm sure that you must have clashed with some of these old school politicians in your party a number of times, right?
I wouldn't call it a clash. I think one thing I've learned out of this whole scenario is that to be in politics, to stand your ground in politics, you need a lot, and I mean a lot of patience. When it's not, there's always the timing. You have to be a right person at the right time and at the right place. When the time is not right, you can't do it yet. You have to wait and wait. And if you can't wait any longer, then you bite your tongue and wait a little longer. So the only way forward is to be very patient and patient.
Now your party, Chartthai Pattana, and in its previous life, Chartthai Party, has always been seen as a party of the rural constituencies, right? But why do you think it has not been able to really make a strong appeal with the urban voters, especially in big cities like Bangkok?
I think, well, as an individual, I think I've proven myself, but unfortunately, I managed to only proven myself to be both urban and rural. My work, both domestics and internationals, I think has proven enough to the people that I can be in any stage, you know, whether it's local, national, or international. However, I'm still not powerful enough, or my ability is still very limited that I cannot spread my wings and cover the entire party like my father used to. So that comes with time and age, unfortunately.
Since you mentioned your late father, of course, I mean, I'm sure that you must have often looked back to the good old days of Chartthai Pattana and Chartthai Party, right? The party produced 2 prime ministers, don't forget that. And I'm sure that you must be thinking yourself that, is it possible that someday I would be able to step in his shoes? And
No, now that I beg to differ. I never have the ambition to become the premier. I think for me, the biggest and the most prestigious title I have is the son of a prime minister. That is a title that no one can take away from me.
And is that all it's very content with?
I embrace it, actually. There's no point running away from it.
Okay.
Some people might say, oh, he got here because of his father. I mean, my dad passed away 8 years ago. You know, in a couple of days, 23rd of April, we would commemorate his, the 8th year that he passed away. So instead of running away from a shadow that my father casted, I mean, being a prime minister of Thailand, you cast the biggest shadow in Thai politics, and you cannot run away from it.
Okay.
So you might as well embrace it and use it to maximize your ability and capacity to work for the people. And like I mentioned earlier, I've got no ambition to become the premier. I have ambition, though, to continue the work of my father in the party, maintain the party, as well as in my hometown in Suphanburi. And that's about it. And if my fate is going to lead me somewhere, then so be it. But I make the best of today so that I shall not turn around 5 years from now and say that, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that.
Okay. All right. You are the second generation of Silpa-archa family, right, to take the helm of the party. Do you intend to pass on the legacy to your children? Has any one of them, you have 3 children, right?
Yes.
Has any one of them show any sign of developing passion for politics yet?
One of them, yes. My middle son, Ben, he is 20 right now. But politics is not something that I can pass on just like a baton. And also politics from my father's era to this era, to his era, 10 years from now or whatever, it's going to be totally different. I just want him to be the best that he could be. If eventually he wants to join politics, okay, I shall support him. I mean, he has indicated his, very strong interest in politics. But I said, okay, if you're interested, do your best in school first. And make sure that, you do your job well. And when you come back home, then we'll talk politics. But I'm not forcing it onto him. I'm not forcing him onto the other people that he's going to take the party over me, because my father's legacy is not my legacy. And my story, I'm not calling it a legacy yet, because just my story is not my son's story. He's going to have his own story. And, come what may, we'll deal with it one day at a time.
Okay, good. But when you were as young as your son, who is now showing signs of interest in politics, what was your views on politics back then?
Well, I was pretty naive, actually.
You were studying in UK at the time.
I was in UK for almost 10 years. And then I went to the US for another 3. But I've been in politics since I was 3 years old. I walked with my father, handing out flyers. By 7 or 8 years old, I already up on the stage campaigning with my father. In the early teens, I managed to grab a microphone and start saying something.
So it was in your blood,
I've been born and breathed politics, breathe in politics, breathe out politics. And back then, when my father was still around, well, it was fun for me because my father was like a humongous Titanic in front of a little tiny rowboat. And he would, shield me from all the storms, big waves, tsunami, or whatever.
Okay.
He's also a Great Wall of China for me. I could lean back on him anytime. I could just fall back and make sure that he will be there to catch me. But today, now that he's passed away, there's no more big Titanic in front of me, nor the Chinese wall. There's no one's going to come along and pat me on the back and say, Top, don't worry, it'll be okay. Take my hand.
You're on your own.
I'm just on my own. All I can do now is just go down and say, oh, I'll be okay, that kind of thing. And there's no more, don't worry, that kind of thing. So it's just me, myself, and me, really. And my father have prepared me since I was a kid. And until today, I'm still struggling with politics.
Wow.
So I don't think there can be any much of a preparation. I'm not half a man of what my father used to be. And, I'm still not quite sure how to prepare my son for his future politics because, like I mentioned earlier, that from my father to this era is a totally different playing field.
Definitely, yeah.
And that is confirmed by my father's assistant. She kindly enough to still stays with us to help, with a few administration stuff. And I usually approach her and ask her and said, in this scenario, how my father responded or reacted. And I always get the same answer back. I'm sorry, I can't tell you that because there has never been an incident like this during your dad's time.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is only 20 years? What about 20 years from now?
Wow.
It's going to be a totally different playing field.
You're right.
So it's best to equip a person with an attitude to be ready at any time. A storm can be just around the corner, or as well as a sunshine can be just around another corner. You just have to be ready for whatever life is throwing at you.
Okay. You have been in politics over 20 years now, right?
Yes.
And have been holding key cabinet members for quite a number of years. If you have to list 3 biggest problems that Thailand is facing this day, what would they be?
Well, one, I still stand on what I mentioned before the election is education. That is like going back to square one. Number 2 is I think from education, it leads to attitude when you grow up. With the attitude that we have at the moment, Thailand, we are very proud of the fact that because of our kings and royal families, we managed to maintain our sovereignty over the entire history of our country. That has been our pride, that has been our dignity. Unfortunately, it comes at a price. And that price is the fact that Thai people never went through the hardship of being colonized, of being in losing the war or whatever, because we were lucky enough to have our kings and royal families looking after us. And because of that, the word disciplined, the word patience is not really our strong suit in Thailand. And as a result, many dimensions, for example, we have so many laws in Thailand, is very effective, but unfortunately, when it comes to implementation, that's the lack of it.
Okay.
So that is number 2. And I think number 3 is that looking forward, we really need to change the way we think as well as the way we do things. Because if we don't change the way we think, if we don't change the way we act, it doesn't matter how many governments you change, it doesn't matter how many prime ministers you have, you always end up in exactly the same place, exactly the same problem. And I think those are the few issues.
Let's go back to the impact from the last election, right? And many people want to believe that the victory by the Varawut Party should serve as an indication that the days of the so-called Ban Jai system, the patronage system, are numbered. The system works like this, that you depend on these families of influential figures in rural areas. They help you win elections, and in return they have the share of the spoils after the election in the forms of cabinet seats, right? And and this thing has been going on for decades now. Do you think, are we too premature to think that the days of the system are numbered simply because of the result of one election?
Now, the funny thing is that despite the fact that last election has proven that the big family names, failed to secure their seats, right after the election, everything just go back to the way it was. The people still rely on the big families in the provinces. And it turns out that sometimes people they elected, they couldn't run to because they don't know what to do. And the big families still, at the moment, still do what they have always been doing. That's what I've seen so far. And I don't know how long it's going to, would that change the structure of the patronage society of Thailand? It is possible, maybe a decade from now. Will Thailand be transformed into every man for himself and there's no more patronage, no more I help you, you help me? Well, there's a pros and cons to it. But I think as time goes by, I think people would decide how they want to move forward into the move forward party's way or the traditional way. I think it's still a little early to decide whether it's out or not.
Okay. All right, last questions, and tell me if I'm wrong. I have a feeling that you feel more comfortable talking about Thai politics in English than in Thai.
Yes.
Why so?
Many people say that. Many people say that because I think
there must be things in Thai politics that you may not feel very comfortable talking about them in Thai, right?
It's just Thai language can be very slippery. You say one thing, and
It can be interpreted.
it can be interpreted in gazillion number of ways.
Okay.
But when I say it in English, I can be very specific. And for those who understand what I'm trying to convey, they would think along what I am saying, and it doesn't slip sideways. But in speaking in Thai, the general population, everyone, try to interpret, and it might misinterpret what I'm trying to say.
Many of your supporters, jokingly of course, say that next time they expect you to speak English when you are on your campaign trail.
Oh, that if that is in oh no, I can't actually. I don't know if that go against the regulation of the election commission because.
Why you cannot campaign in other language than Thai? Or what?
Well, who are you campaigning to? You see, because if you're campaigning to a foreigner, now that's illegal because they cannot vote for you. And if I'm going to campaign to Thai people, then I'm going to look pretty silly standing on the stage, campaigning, vote for me. But it's going to look quite ridiculous. But I do agree, quite a few people have mentioned to me that I'm very comfortable saying, well, a political interview in English rather than in Thai, because like I said, I can be quite expressive and quite definite in what I'm saying.
All right, so thank you very much, and I can assure you that you didn't say anything that would land you in trouble in this interview.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. ขอบคุณมาก
Thank you. ขอบคุณครับ